I'd like to thank you for inviting me on the show. It's such an honour to be here, and I'd just like to say that when I'm not playing Xbox with my mate Thor, I really like to listen to my favourite podcast, Pop Culture Pastor. Hey, Doug! Doug! Oh, that's right, Doug's dead.
Pop Culture Pastor.
All right. So, Cody, Cody's not here. Sometimes I just say, so Cody, even because he's usually always here, but then sometimes he's not here.
He's not here today.
Yeah. Why don't you tell everyone who you are?
I'm Aila.
Yeah, that works.
I'm your child.
Yeah. Ayla's my oldest daughter. And she's here just for the intro part here today, because I don't have Cody. This is later on in the pod. We're doing our Scott's breakdown. Not a breakdown, but our Scott's takeover. So with Cody out of town, Scotty and Scott, two of our geeks at the round table, they're gonna come take over the pod and talk Star Wars. Oh. And I'm just gonna be here too. But that's later on. Right now, I wanted you to come on with me because we went and saw the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, you're gonna have to talk a little louder.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. See, you're still not quite pushing enough air.
Okay.
Like, say something really loud. Just
hi.
Yeah. Okay. That was much better. They could hear you that time. You're gonna have to like warm up to this, listeners, because she's somewhat new to like talking into a microphone, and it is a weird feeling at first, but she's gonna get the hang of it. So yeah, we went and saw Super Mario Brothers, and I just enjoyed it immensely.
It was so fun. It was very fun.
It was really, really fun. I felt like, for me, as someone who played the original on the Nintendo, like honestly, if you played the original on the Nintendo, this is what I love, is because it's made for kids now.
Yeah.
But as an adult who played the original, you're just from the original alone, you're in on 50% of the gags. Mm-hmm. Like you would understand at least half of the gags in the movie. If you played the first few Super Mario Brothers on Nintendo and Super Nintendo, then you're in on almost all the gags. Like you would get all the jokes, all the little Easter eggs. And it was just wonderful. They made a movie that was really kind of a love letter to people who played the video game and enjoyed it. And we really, I try to tell this to Aila, we really enjoyed the original Super Mario Brothers, even if the graphics weren't that great.
Well, I've played the original Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like as an old person, I have to apologize for it doesn't look as cool as today's video game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I feel like I have to apologize for something we really loved because we didn't know any better. Like obviously we couldn't see the future and see that video games were going to be like Fortnite. I mean, where they're basically like cartoons Fortnite, you play. But we loved Super Mario Brothers, and it's what we had. And this movie's delightful. I mean, I really think I just had a really cheesy grin on my face the whole time. Oh, and Aila can probably back this up because I think in the theater they would do some gag or something for the video game players. I was like, yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like talking to the screen.
Lawson was doing it too.
Oh man, it was just so fun, and it seemed like this is why I loved. It had something about it of why I loved the first wave of the MCU movies up until recently here. It's why I love. There's a certain thing that this movie does that I love. And it's clearly the people that made this movie have a love for the source material.
Oh, yeah.
And it reminds me of like Peter Jackson doing the Lord of the Rings movies. We're not going to talk about The Hobbit. But the Lord of the Rings movies, like there was a reverence for the material. And in this, there's clearly by the people that made this, there was a love for the source material of Super Mario Brothers on the Nintendo that just really pours out of the movie and just makes it so stinking fun.
It was so fun.
It was just a fun hour and a half, and I can't wait to see it again. I wanted to talk about a couple things here. because we're not going to talk about this very long. But Elon Musk actually had things to say about the critical reception of Super Mario Brothers. So I know, right? Something very interesting is that the reviews have generally been negative for this movie, which...
Why?
I think, well, let me tell you what Elon says. First of all, on Rotten Tomatoes, it currently holds a rotten score of 57% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience score currently sits at 96% positive, which is fresh, according to the Rotten Tomato meter. And on Twitter, somebody tweeted at Elon Musk, and I don't know why people tweet at Elon Musk certain things. Maybe they just know he responds to people, like he actually talks. And so maybe that's why, but I don't know why this dude decided he was going to tweet this at Elon Musk, but he said this. He said, content review systems are broken because critics have a problem with Chris Pratt. The experts have deemed the new Mario movie a D, even though audiences clearly love it. And he says, both of these groups are obviously biased, but the disparity here reveals a major problem, which I wholeheartedly agree with. And we've talked a little bit about this.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about this. I think that's part of it. I don't think that's all of it. I do think that part of it is there's backlash against certain Hollywood folks, the minority of Hollywood folks who tend to be more conservative in their politics. And I think there's a backlash against them. I don't think that's all of it, though. I also think there's this weird little pocket when it comes to geek entertainment, especially. And I would consider that's our wheelhouse. That's what we talk about here on the podcast. I would consider, comic book movies, video game movies, excuse me, all that stuff, geek entertainment. And there's something about like critical reception. Excuse me again. There's something about the critical reception of these things where they're reviewing it as if it's like fine theater.
Yeah.
Where, I just don't think
cinema.
Yeah, I just don't think that's how it's meant to be. That's fine. You can review it as that. And this is kind of why I stopped watching the Academy Awards too. I used to love the Academy Awards when I was your age and young and older. And I loved watching it. But at some point I got to the idea of like, it's kind of pretentious. And so when you critically review a movie from the lens of like, I'm going to review this and tell you why it's not high art, is sort of a pretentious thing to do as a critic when the movie's not made for lovers of high art.
Yeah.
It's a movie for people who loved Nintendo and Super Mario Brothers. And on that level, it maybe works better than much of the stuff based on IP that's come out in the last couple of years. Like, it's really, really fun. So Elon Musk, in response to what this guy says what the critics are so disconnected from reality. And I would agree with that. I would essentially agree with that. And I just wanted to point that out, that this is an interesting little disparity that's going on with this movie, critically speaking. But now it's time for our Gen Z breakdown. What's this movie about? Well, let Aila break it down for you. Here it is, the Gen Z breakdown. Aila, what's happening in this movie?
So, the Super Mario Brothers movie, it is so much fun. It's 10 out of 10, I would say. Go watch it. It's really great because Mario and Luigi are just chilling in New York City, and they're starting their own freelance plumbing business because, follow your dreams, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brooklyn randomly floods. I don't really understand what's
that seemed unrealistic to you?
Is that a thing that happens?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. And so Mario and Luigi are like, dude, if we save Brooklyn, then people won't be throwing shade anymore and we'll be able to do all the plumbing everywhere and make all the monies. And so they go to Brooklyn, but they actually kind of mess up the sewer, it looks like. And then instead of going back into the daylight, they just go further into the sewer. And then Luigi gets sucked into a pipe, and then they just end up in this alternate dimension, basically. That is Mario Land.
Yeah, those pipes work in opposite fashion of normal pipes. Usually it's other things sucking things out of pipes. Anyways, go on.
So Mario and Luigi, they're like flying through this air current, and then Mario's like, everything's fine, but then they get separated and it's not fine. And Luigi gets yeeted into the Dark Lands. Is that what it's called?
The Dark Lands or yeeted? Because I don't know what yeeted means.
No, in the Dark Lands.
Yes.
I couldn't remember.
He refers to them as the Dark Lands.
Okay, which sucks for Luigi because that's where he gets kidnapped by Bowser. And then Mario gets yeeted into the Mushroom Kingdom, which sucks for him because he thinks that mushrooms are not bussin'. He does not like them. And that is where he meets Toad. And he's like, wow, there's a mushroom talking to me. That's weird. And then Toad takes him to see Princess Peach so that she can help him save Luigi. And naturally, Mario falls in love with Princess Peach at first sight. And Princess Peach just attacks Mario because he comes running at her. And she's like, no. But then she's like, oh, you're a human. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then
you can't be too sure, by the way. Someone's running at you,
Yeah, for sure. And then she's like, oh, if you want to come with me on my mission to team up with the Kong army, then we can save Luigi. And Mario is really simping, so he's like, bet. And they go off with Toad, who is probably the best third wheel ever because he doesn't complain. He's just there for the ride. He's
super positive.
He really is. And
I didn't know Mario was a simp.
Only slightly.
Okay.
Because, well, yeah. And then Bowser, Mario is not that big of a simp. Bowser is the CEO of all simps. Okay? Bowser.
He be simping. Big simping.
I think Bowser needs some help.
Yeah.
And he reveals his plan to marry Princess Peach, which his army is a little bit put off by. They're like,
I gotta say, that was a big twist for me. I did not see Bowser being so in love with Peach, but I went with it.
I was like, that's not what happens in the video game, is it?
I mean, I don't think so. I don't remember that part, but it was entertaining nonetheless.
It was. And so in Bowser's lair or whatever, Luigi's like being kept in a cage with several other prisoners, including some penguins that are prisoners of war and a very suicidal Luma.
Is that what that was called? A Luma?
Yeah, they're from the Mario Galaxy.
Oh, okay.
Game.
I didn't play that one as much.
I maybe saw it one time. I've never played it.
All right.
But then later on, Bowser gets Peach, but during the wedding, Peach just has a glow up and turns into Elsa and starts freezing everything.
Yeah.
And then like she freezes Bowser, they save Luigi, and everyone's fine for a minute, but then Mario has to go and cause like a wormhole to exist, and it goes back into the real world.
Yeah.
And then everyone has to fight Bowser in Brooklyn. And then they shrink him because he eats the tiny non-bussin mushroom. and then the wormhole somehow fixes itself and everyone lives happily ever after.
Yeah. It's a little unexplainable at the end, but it works.
We don't question it.
No, we don't. Everything's bussin'.
For real.
Yeah. I have to say, I do think Bowser was my favorite though. Jack Black is fantastic.
Yes.
And the songs, the songs. I read something the other day
slap.
that like the song Peaches could be eligible to be nominated for the Oscars. And I'm just like, listen, If you nominate that song Academy, I take it all back. I'll watch the Academy Awards just to see Jack Black on stage perform that song. Peaches, 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 peaches. Oh my gosh. That was so funny.
It was.
So hilarious. And you're right. I don't even know what being a simp is, but he was definitely the biggest of simps.
Oh, yeah, he was.
So, all right. Thank you for that Gen Z breakdown of the movie. Obviously, spoilers. Maybe we should have warned you before then, but
perhaps
I'll put it on the description for the pod.
I mean, if you've played the game, you kind of know what's going on.
Yeah. I would assume the people that really would be bothered by spoilers have seen this movie already because it's been out.
Oh, yeah.
It's been out going on a week now. Well, a week by the time you hear this, and it just blew up. 377 million globally, which breaks all the records for a movie based on a video game and animated. It made more than Frozen 2.
It did?
In its opening weekend.
As it should. Frozen 2 was interesting, to say the least.
That didn't sound totally honest. Tell me what you really think about Frozen 2. This is the kind of talk you don't normally get on Pop Culture Pastor.
Okay. Frozen 2 is... I liked it, and the music was really good, but it was just like... This feels so... It felt very like they were only creating it to make a sequel. Like, it didn't feel planned at all.
Honestly, they've tried that before with the animated stuff on Disney. I don't know that sequels ever really work. Toy Story is maybe the only exception to that I can think of right off the top of my head, because they made like Lion King 2 and
I haven't
Aladdin 2, and none of them were. They were usually straight to video. Yeah. I mean, back when that was a thing. Anyways,
Frozen 2, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't.
Super Mario Brothers made all the money. It deserved to make all the money, and it
Yes.
should still keep making the monies as people go back and get repeat viewings, because it really was that fun. If you have even a marginal interest in Super Mario Brothers growing up, or in your life, then you should definitely go see the movie and take some kids with you, because I think that's the best part is my younger kids don't have that much experience with Super Mario Brothers, but they loved it because it's really a kid's movie, but it has enough there for you, enough love for the game itself that it's based on, that if you loved playing the game at any point in your life, you'll really get a kick out of it.
Take that, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Take that, Sonic! Kick rocks, as Cody would say. Kick rocks, Sonic. Man, we really
Being
need
a jabroni.
We really need Cody here. He is being a jabroni, doing that master's degree thing.
How dare
I
he.
need a week off from the pod. All right. Well, okay. Thank you, Aila, for the Gen Z breakdown and the help with Super Mario Brothers. Everyone else, kick back, relax, get ready. We're going to talk. It's time for the Scott takeover of the pod. Me and Scott and Scotty. We're going to talk all the announcements from Star Wars Celebration and The Mandalorian when we come back. Stick around. We're back on the podcast, Pop Culture Pastor. Dave here, but no Cody. We are Codyless this week. And now we shift into the main part of our podcast. And this is a Scott takeover of the pod. We have Scott, Dillon, and Scotty.
Hi, guys.
I got to say the last name of one of you so they can differentiate. But fellow geeks of the round table, I'm sorry, it's Scott Patrick Dillon.
Oh, yeah. See, I wasn't going to speak until you said all three names.
Yes. Yeah. We got to say all three names. But you guys are here. Now, I needed your help with this because if I'm being honest, we're going to talk about Star Wars Celebration and the announcements they made. But I would say that my Star Wars fandom is kind of like an all-time low in my life. I watched only the first couple episodes of Andor, not really into that. And I'm just not as into it. Although I have kept up. I watched the newest 2 episodes of Mandalorian today in preparation. and I have kept up with Mando. So, yeah, I'm ready to talk about this, and I'll jump in at places, but I'm going to let you guys kind of lead and drive the discussion. And so we're going to talk about Star Wars Celebration 2023. Scotty, where are we starting here?
I think we let's start with the movies. Let's start with the first one that was announced. James Mangold directing a Star Wars movie about the first Jedi. We know James Mangold from Logan. He's done the new Indiana Jones. He's also working on a Swamp Thing movie at DC as well.
Now, do you think he's just taking over the movie that Aronofsky was going to do? Isn't that his name?
The way I understand it, that was a separate project. I think that was a project that kind of fell through and didn't visualize as far.
The Lost Rider. What was his name? Not Aronofsky, but
I just lost his name.
Yeah, I can't think of him. Lindelof.
Yeah, Damon
Lindelof. Yeah, who recently, like, that was going to be a thing for the longest time, and then just recently it was announced, like, no, it's not.
Yeah, well, it was that project. It was the Patty Jenkins one was canned. The Feige one was canned. And supposedly they said this weekend that the TQAT is still going. So TQAT is the only one out of those projects that's still.
Well, okay. So before we even get into this, let me ask you both a question. At this point, with all the projects that they've announced that haven't come to fruition, and in fact now won't come to fruition, how do we know any of these are going to pan out? Like, why do we believe
these ones are very far along, is what Catherine Kennedy said this weekend. Also in the realm of, like, say, the other two movies we're talking about supposedly are at the point of ready to film pretty quickly in the next probably 4 to 5 months, is the way it sounds.
I would say, if I can chime in.
Yeah.
I would say the reason I think maybe these three specifically is like they've been working in the direction of at least one of these films. And it seems like they're going to culminate several things that they've been putting together with that film. So that one's like the most for sure for me. And then the other two, as Scotty was saying, is they say that they're pretty prepared to move forward with them. I think that there's been a lot of talk about a prequel to the prequel to the prequel, like that very first era. And then I was a little bit more surprised with the sequel follow-up because they kind of said that they were done with that. But then again, I'm not surprised because they made a lot of money on those. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this one, James Mangold, who is the director of the new Indiana Jones movie, any nervousness that movie hasn't come out by the time they make this announcement? Are we sure that Indiana Jones movie is going to be good? What happens if it's not good?
I think it will be. I really do. You look at his past history of things he's done, even especially Logan and things like that.
Yeah, he's got a great track record.
I have faith in it. Yet again, we've seen with other studios, but there could be some hands involved. But it sounds like he was on Indy was pretty much let to go how he wanted to go. So
okay, well, Scotty, I'm just telling you, my heart can't handle another bad Indiana Jones movie. I don't know if I can take it.
Nothing can be worse than Crystal Skull. So
oh my goodness, I hope you're right. I hope you're right, Scotty. So yeah, he's doing this movie. It's set 25,000 years before the prequels. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And he describes it as a biblical epic akin to the 10 Commandments.
Yes.
I mean, you're messing with my pastoral sensibilities now. Now I'm a little interested.
It's the sacred text, man.
Yes.
Now, do we know anything about that time frame? Is there anything in canon or in the legendary stuff about the dawn of the Force, the dawn of the Jedi?
About as far back as we go is like New Dawn in the old, the expanded universe stuff. Mm-hmm. So, we're tipping into an area where we haven't really.
So this would be
touched before.
This would be a completely new story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what they said. They said it was going to be, area that they haven't even touched before. So
Okay. All right. You know what? That actually sounds like it could work. It could work. I am nervous until I see the new Indiana Jones movie, though. If the Indiana Jones movie comes out and it's good, and like, then I'm like, okay, Mangold's the guy. Sure, let's get behind this.
Dave,
yeah,
you just got to go back and watch Walk the Line. If he can make a coming to story of Johnny Cash, man, I think he can get Star Wars.
Yeah.
it was a good movie.
Yeah.
It was a good movie. Like I said, nothing in Mangold's past would lead me to believe that this isn't going to be a good movie. But no. I think it's more about the Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones, that makes me nervous. I'm just like, okay, don't make another one of these that's going to mess up the legacy even more.
Our upside is we haven't seen Shia LaBeouf yet, so we're good.
Right. Well, it'd be like the Rocky series. They can always recover from bad sequels.
Yeah.
So that one's the one we probably know the least about.
Yes.
That movie. Why don't we move on to the next one?
The next one is the Filoni directed, really didn't have a title, but we'll just refer to as the Mandalorian movie. It was supposed to tie everything together, all the Disney Plus shows, everything that we have gotten up to this point.
Okay. Now, okay. So this is the point where, first of all, Filoni, I'm so down with. Like, I feel like they should have given him the keys a long time ago.
Yeah.
Just said, build out this new universe into movies.
I feel like he doesn't want that completely. They have sneakily in the last, I think, probably 2 years, he's been upgraded to right below Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah.
So I think he's kind of has grown in power quite a bit. And I think he's kind of got that without being the face per se of it, like Kennedy is.
Yeah. Here's what makes me nervous. And this one, we can kind of segue into a discussion about The Mandalorian season 3 so far.
Yeah.
Here's my problem. This is what makes me a little nervous about this. I am almost positive it's from things I've read and heard going on behind the scenes. But in my way of thinking, there's been a recognizable drop off of quality in season 3 of The Mandalorian. And it's not like it's bad. It's still good. But first, season 1 and season 2 of The Mandalorian were so great. They were so good. Probably the best thing that's been on Disney Plus series wise.
Yeah.
That you can't help but notice that the dialogue doesn't seem as good. The story, man, first of all, some spoilers might get uttered here. Scotty, have you watched the most recent episode?
I have. We finished it. So
okay. This is actually the next to last episode, most recent.
Yes, we have one more.
The handing over of the Darksaber after that was just a built up thing from the end of season 2. For him to just kind of explain that away in 30 seconds and give her the Darksaber, I thought was a amazing just cheat. Like, what we cared about it. We cared about how the drama of that was going to play out. And then he's just like, well, you know what? I got taken out by a robot thing. She beat the robot thing. She gets the Darksaber. It was just a little too easy. And it's just like, okay. What'd you think about that?
It's kind of how, she got it in the first place.
Right.
Seeing Rebels and Clone Wars. My other thing is quality wise, and I think this is a problem. And I kind of, this was my worry this year, was that, you had a bunch of things that were supposed to be going on at the same time as. So you were supposed to have the Rangers show.
Yeah.
All that Ranger show stuff with Cara Dune, once, all that happened and she was let go, then it became this, we have to shove it into Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's become this, okay, Mando has to carry this now on top of carrying the storyline that we were originally going to have. So I think that was the problem. And and you can tell, and you can tell there's little pieces of things that I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be the Cara Dune stuff.
Yeah. Scott, what do you think?
Yeah. So, gosh, I don't know if I agree.
Yeah, and hey, that's fine. Yeah, that's cool. You don't look, we're real specific on this show to say, hey, just because we don't like some or something doesn't mean y'all can't like it, right? It's
Right.
very subjective.
I think as far as the lore of Mandalore itself, I've been pretty excited about some of the things that they've been really diving into. Seeing a live mythosaur on screen was pretty incredible. Tying in the clans, getting some backstory about where that split from those clans has happened, and now that they're coming back together. I would caveat with, I do kind of agree, Dave, with Bo-Katan getting back the Darksaber. I remember thinking about during that episode, I was like, she's been in this position before. If you're a fan of all the series that she's been a part of, she's been in that position before where she's had the Darksaber and she's meant to lead the Mandalorians. And so I'm kind of personally questioning if she's the character to do it again. I don't know, Scotty, if you have thoughts on that. But that was very interesting. That's been very interesting to me. So far right now, I'm kind of in the place whereas I have to see next week's episode to decide if this season was my favorite season or not. That's where I'm at.
I totally agree. And all the lore we've gotten this year, absolutely love. I agree, and Bo-Katan being the one to take it, I think for me feels like a setup for her to die a hero and die that leader. I think.
Oh, you think she's gonna die?
I do. I really do. I think we're setting up to lose Bo-Katan.
Okay.
I don't think it'll happen this season.
Interesting.
I for sure think it'll happen in whatever this movie is.
So here's where we disagree, Scotty. Because I think, and I'm going off of, I think the quality has taken a step down. I'm going to start with that. And I think it's because of all the behind the scenes stuff. I think Pedro and Jon Favreau don't like Kathleen Kennedy. That Kathleen Kennedy has messed with stuff so much that Favreau's mailing it in. Just, that's why the scripts are suffering. Pedro, there's all sorts of rumors that Pedro was not on set for any of the filming of season 3. That's not him in the suit. Clearly, they did a little bit of that in season 2.
Yeah.
But he wasn't on set at all for season 3, and that he's done, and that frankly, I think what some people are guessing is that they're setting up to maybe switch the main character to Bo-Katan as the Mandalorian, and that Din Djarin might die. Now, the other reason I say that is because I can't remember which actor it was. I think it might have been Katie Sackhoff who plays Bo-Katan, but she had an interview somewhere where she said that she thought that the season finale of The Mandalorian was really going to, quote, divide the fandom. It was going to be divisive. So you got some of the actors being on record saying things like that, and I'm just like, that's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know. That could all be just people thinking too much.
Yeah.
And that could come to nothing. But the stuff with Pedro Pascal is interesting. Now, he never takes off his helmet, so you could easily recast that.
Yeah. Well, it's like John Wayne's grandson who does the walking around stuff, and another guy does the action sequences.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I thought this most recent episode where they took Din Djarin captive, I was like, uh-oh.
I think if we do lose him, it won't be here. I think it will be the movie. I really do. I think that's the biggest thing. I will be more surprised if we go ahead and say, hey, we're coming back for another season. I feel like this is the last season of Mandalorian, and then that movie will happen.
Yeah, I just don't know if Bo-Katan and that actress have enough charisma, enough about the character where, like, yes, I want to follow that character solely. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you're right, Scotty. I think you have to have Din Djarin if you're going to do a movie.
I think so. And at the end of the day, I hate to say it, but I think you lose both of them in that movie. I think you lose Bo and you lose Din.
But just for the record, I love the lore stuff. I've enjoyed the Mandalore stuff. Seeing the mythosaur was real cool. Scott, you were trying to say something there.
Yeah, my bad. I was just wondering. Well, one thought that I had was there's nobody better at guessing things wrong than the Star Wars fan base. So
Yeah.
there's nobody who's better at getting upset at the way things happen than the Star Wars fan base. So just about anybody who's part of any Star Wars show could make a comment like, "Yeah, I really think this episode will divide the fan base because, you know."
Well, the fan base is already divided.
Just about,
Yeah.
just about every part of Star Wars, every new episode of Star Wars divides the fan base. So
Yeah, and I think there's an element where they can't win.
yeah,
And we talked about this on the pod here in a past episode about how once you get so far into IP, you feel like you have to go in new directions, and some people don't want new directions. And Andor's a perfect example of that. Andor is a perfect example because they did something that Star Wars has never done. It's more Star Trek territory to go into like the political thriller.
Yeah.
And they did that, and about half people liked it, half people it wasn't for them, you know?
Yeah, and I think some of the side stories that we get here in season 3 are kind of a result of the more positive feedback that came from Andor. Just because I remember feeling, I think it was the second episode, I was like, oh, well, there was the Mandalorian, but put Andor in the middle of that word. And what I mean by that is I watched that episode feeling like, man, that was so much like some of those Andor episodes where we got, you know, some side story, political, you know, with the stuff with the New Republic and the doctor who got his mind wiped and all those characters and everything.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Scotty, but that's probably the storylines you were talking about was probably going to connect more with the Rangers of the Republic.
Yes, I feel like that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with the fella who starts trying to investigate things and tries to follow up with the New Republic about the things that are happening out in the Outer Rim there. So
yeah, and that stuff I've been okay with it. I dig the idea of trading the Empire for the New Republic. That a lot of people, I really appreciated the Christopher Lloyd story. This week, because I do think that once a bureaucracy gets so big that it's just at heart going to be a little bit fascistic, you know. It's just gonna end up being like that because once you get so big, and obviously this is a collection of galaxies, or you know, like right. It's just when it's so big, there's gonna be people who aren't represented well. And I've always dug that about what Star Wars has done, that, you know, just because Princess Leia and the good guys win in the original trilogy doesn't mean they get in there and, like, you know, the galaxy rides off into the sunset. Like, right. No, it's still a problem because you have a huge bureaucracy, and that's never good. It's never going to work out great. And so I dig that part of that. I dig the exploring of that a little bit. I didn't mind. I know a lot of people didn't like the episode with the doctor. I kind of dug it, which is weird because I wasn't really into Andor, but I kind of dug that episode.
But it's also, you know, without having the Ranger stuff, we had to tell that story somehow, you know. Yeah. So I think you had to have that, and you know, like we're talking about with Andor, I think the thing that worked for Star Wars that's worked really well that Star Trek hasn't ever really tried to differentiate itself. We're going in the directions and doing, you know, different kinds of stories. You know, we're not, you know, it's not every week like Star Trek where we're on a Starfleet ship. Here's our mission. You know, We're doing, you know, procedural shows. We're doing, you know, we haven't done a comedy yet, but, you know, we have, you know, a spy thriller. We have these things that, you know, if Star Wars would just been about Jedis all the time, you know, it would be, I hate to say it, it would have been like Star Trek, where you pretty much feel like you're telling that same story over and over again. This way, I feel like the one thing that Star Wars has captured on it is a variety of stories that, you know, if you don't like this, wait, here's this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think now that we've seen this week's episode, we can look back and understand that episode wasn't really about the doctor. I think it was more about the girl.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
The girl who's the spy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
and so and I don't think it was an accident that they came out with the Ahsoka trailer at Star Wars Celebration. They gave us a look at Thrawn right when we get a reference to him in this week's
We name
Mandalorian.
dropped him quite a few times.
Yeah, he gets name dropped. I think now we're starting to see the plan a little bit.
Well, I think
So let's move into Ahsoka.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
I am very excited. She is actually probably one of my top 3 favorite characters in Star Wars. So,
Yeah.
Seeing that trailer made me very happy. Especially seeing the Rebels characters and that and just that feel that we know Thrawn is coming. And then here Dave Filoni talk about that him and Timothy Zahn avidly talked and he worked things out with Timothy Zahn, the writer of the original Legends books, and also has come back and wrote new canon Thrawn books as well.
And they confirmed Lars Mikkelsen as his casting, so he carries over from Rebels. So the version that we'll get in live action is by somebody who was already very familiar with this version of the character,
just like Bo-Katan.
And I just think that's going to be pretty incredible. I got it. Yeah, when I watched that trailer, man, when it dropped, I was just super stoked seeing all the references. I mean, there was like a scene there that was like they just copied in live action. It was the last scene of Rebels.
Yes.
And they just recreated it like shot for shot. And I'm like, man, you just know that this is Rebels season 5.
Yeah, that's great. And
it just has a new focus on the main character focus is on Ahsoka rather than that band of rebels, but she's essential to their stories. And we know that from the end of Rebels, they're looking for Ezra, and wherever he goes, you're going to find Thrawn. And so I was super excited that they, they've announced that quite a while ago, but they put that trailer out and, all the things that have been coming out of that. I'm super excited. One thing I think is just so awesome with that is if you think back to when her character was introduced in the animated film, The Clone Wars, I mean, people critically panned this character. And just to see what like Filoni can do with a character, if you really give him the reins and control, because for a while there he was under the Cartoon Network banner and they were making it really, really kid-like, and they just started allowing him to steer that ship where he wanted to take it, and then people just fell in love with this character, Ahsoka, and to see where it is now that like it's one of the most anticipated shows of the Star Wars property. It's just really awesome. So
yeah,
I'm
and
excited for it.
my level of experience with the animated stuff is very small. I watched a couple episodes of the Clone Wars, but I haven't watched Rebels. But knowing enough about it to know that the Ahsoka show obviously gave lots of Easter eggs for the people who loved Rebels, and the fact that the last 2 episodes of Mandalorian have really started to tie with some of the things we've seen in the trailer for Ahsoka.
Yes.
I am excited about Thrawn. I am excited about these stories feeling more connected. Like, look, Bad Batch, the Vision stuff, that's all really cool. But like it's and Boba Fett obviously had a kind of a tacit connection to the Mandalorian, only in that they made an episode of it Mandalorian based. But other than that, it wasn't like he was a huge character in that. I dig the bigger, larger connection to a larger story. I think that's where Filoni is getting it right by clearly going in a direction that like the MCU went in its first wave, where, hey, there's a big bad behind all of this that you guys haven't met yet. And he's coming. And I dig that.
Well, I think that's the thing that's really working. We look at Boba Fett and we're like, there's not really a connection. I think there's something there that we are missing that will curtail into this movie that we don't know about. And
Right.
and like you
do you care
back,
to elaborate, or are you just guessing?
I'm guessing. I
Okay.
think there's gonna be a moment where Boba Fett has yet again another moment that we had to tell that story, get us to whatever is going to happen in that movie.
So you don't think they're done with Boba Fett?
No, not anywhere.
Hopefully not.
Okay. All right.
And
I hope not, because I didn't really want to end when they announced the Boba Fett series, I was excited. I'm less excited with him being like mayor sheriff or whatever it is he is of Tatooine. Like, I'm less excited with where that show went. But that was, that's kind of my experience with a lot of the shows in between the Mandalorian stuff, is that Boba Fett, it had moments that I really loved. It had a lot of it that I didn't like. Same with Kenobi. I thought all the stuff with Kenobi and Anakin on screen together, that was all gold. But then some of the other stuff, I was like, this is not interesting. I don't care about Reva. I don't care about the sisters, and I don't really care about those as characters. And like, I feel like, okay, it's your job to make me care about those characters. If you're going to spend so much time on them, make me care about those characters. And I just don't think they did that. But The Mandalorian, I care about the other Mandalorian characters. They've done a good enough job. And now I care about like this kind of existential added out there threat of Thrawn and an empire that's still, quite well formed, even though the New Republic's not aware of it. Yeah. And I'm into it. I dig it. I'm just glad it looks like they're going to start connecting more.
Well, and we get that feel that we are finally, and we've had it kind of since the first season, but we get that feel that we are moving towards the First Order, and we're taking a large step this year. And I think that's the other thing that I think is so nice. You brought up Bad Batch. If you haven't watched Bad Batch, and I recommend you go back and watch the rest of Clone Wars and Rebels too, because they're gold. But Bad Batch there's things in Bad Batch too that are very much echoing right now with what Gideon is doing and what they were talking about in that secret meeting in tonight's episode. That echoes. That's really cool. So even that far back, look, tail end of the prequels, there was stuff already moving that direction.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Scott. Do you have something else to say about Ahsoka?
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say that collective of guys is called the Shadow Council.
Yes.
And I just wanted to quickly mention a few really cool ones that show up. If you didn't notice, they called the one guy Hux. So that's Hux's father. And so there's your First Order connection right there. And they're talking about Project Necromancer, which hints to the idea of like resurrecting the dead. You're talking about Palpatine right there. So there's your fishing line connection from there, through the Snoke stuff and all the way through the, where we see in Legends that Palpatine was cloned and brought back. And that's kind of where the direction they're leaning about how he actually comes back. And then you have Captain Pelion, which is Thrawn's like second in command. And that's from the Zahn novel. So just to see that name pop up again was just really cool. I just wanted to mention those. If you're looking for connectivity, I mean, it's really there, especially for the guys who know a lot of the legend stuff and have dug into the shows. So.
All right, let's move on with some of the other TV projects. Let's talk about Skeleton Crew. Now, what's this about? Because I don't know anything about it. You guys know?
And there's very little about that one other than that it is happening between the prequels and Old Republic. So we're dealing in that kind of prequel era, like pre-episode 1 is what we're looking
So it's
at.
not in the Mandalorian.
No,
era.
it's Jude Law is leading the show, and they said very much kind of Goonies kind of feel with a very young cast.
Yeah, it almost struck me as when they were talking about it, maybe like, is it kind of Lost in Space, but Star Wars? Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Maybe a little bit. I kind of got that feel.
There's
too.
kids in it. Right?
Yeah,
they're like a family.
Yeah,
and so all right, that could be cool.
Yeah, that one is we know very little about, and then which kind of segues to the next one. Arclight is the other one that we don't really know a whole lot about either.
Oh
Now,
the Acolyte.
Some of your hardcore fans were pretty excited about Acolyte, but you don't know much about that one as well.
No, there's not a whole lot. Just that Carrie-Anne Moss is a Jedi.
Let's see. Set 100 years before the prequel trilogy during the High Republic era.
Yes.
So they're takes place during a part of the timeline that's peaceful, that there isn't really a war. in this Star Wars type of show. But the creator says, I went back to George's inspiration, speaking of George Lucas, of martial arts films, Kurosawa, samurai films, films that were about deep personal interconnectivity. So master Padawan, teacher pupil, but also father daughter, sibling sibling. That became the war for us in the Star Wars. So this acolyte stuff. First footage, according to Mashable.com, shows a reverence for Chanbara cinema with plenty of shots of the Jedi Temple, Jedi wielding lightsabers, martial arts sequences involving Amanda Stenberg and Carrie-Anne Moss, who you mentioned, Scotty. Yojimbo and the Hidden Fortress were big visual references. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of cool. I feel like sometimes if you can get away from the Skywalker part of the universe, that story, and tell us a story about some different people, especially Jedi. Like, it seems like everything Jedi has to be connected to the Skywalkers.
And this will be nice because this is the first time we're dealing with the High Republic timeline outside of the interconnected novels and the comics they've done so far. So it'll be kind of nice to see a live action show that deals within that time frame.
Andor season 2, you guys excited about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I'll get there. I'm not there yet, but
how much story can they tell? I mean, we know where this goes, right?
Yeah.
Andor ends up in Rogue One and he dies.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
They did say that the second season of Andor would be that's it for the show. They always plan to make 2 seasons. I really loved the first season. I thought it was some amazing storytelling. I really like how they sectioned the show into several different stories that all culminated there at the end. And I think seeing another season of that show, if they continue that kind of storytelling, I'm all on board because you get payoffs throughout the season. I thought of the different stories that they were telling. And I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoy the character. I'd like to see him develop from where he was at the end of season 1 to where you meet him in Rogue One. So I think that's what season 2 is going to be. I want to see K2SO, show up. You seen a droid like him in Andor, but you don't see the actual one that gets reprogrammed. And nobody is mad about more Alan Tudyk in their lives. So that's what I want the season 2 of Andor to be all about. Bring me Alan Tudyk and give me as much as you can.
Alan Tudyk, geek legend. Alan Tudyk. Yeah. That dude, if you're a fan of geek properties, he's a guy. He's your guy, right?
Yes.
He's been in what all has he been in? Seems like he's been in everything. He's in Firefly. Yeah.
Yep.
That guy does it all.
Dodgeball.
Yes. Okay.
iRobot.
What's that?
He's the robot in iRobot, Sonny.
Oh, is he? Okay. Yeah, he's done a lot of voice work that I think people would be surprised with. Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know he was the voice of that.
Yep.
All right. So the last thing we've left here, the last thing we have left to talk about was probably the thing that got the biggest headlines of the weekend as Star Wars Celebration, and that is the return of Daisy Ridley as Rey in a movie that will take place. Was it 15 or 20 years after the sequels?
Yes.
And it will feature Rey building a new Jedi Order. And yeah, okay. It makes waves because it's the big headline because it's Rey, but are you excited about this? I guess that's where I'm going with this. Scott, why don't you go first? How excited are you for this on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm treading thin ice here. When they were done with the Rise of Skywalker, they said that they were done with these characters, and I just don't know where it's gonna go. I've got to say, probably a 6.
Do you think that part of the reason they're bringing her back is because of the negative reception of the sequels? Like they want to prove they were right, like in making them, or what? Like, I suppose it's not out of the realm of possibility. If you make a good movie with these characters, then it sort of redeems the sequels in a small way. Maybe.
I think. I mean, there's a story to tell. I mean, there is. At the end of Rise of Skywalker, when she buries the lightsabers and then rides off into the sunset and then ignites her own lightsaber, there's a part of that where you're like, there's a story to tell. How did the Jedi continue? So, if they can take that and they can make it a really, really nice story, I think I'm going to be on board. I mentioned not too long ago when we were talking about Ahsoka that, the original content that we had with Ahsoka was not the fans' favorite, and she has turned out to be, one of the fans' most anticipated characters to see on screen. And is that going to be Rey? I don't know. Could it be? Maybe.
Yeah. Scotty, where are you at with it?
I think I'm probably about a 7, maybe. I think there is a story to tell. I think there really is. But I also think that, at what point do we move away from pre, episode 7 timeline and jump forward? And I think this is kind of their thought process, because then you can start, bridging that gap. You can start, building to a future, because, like anything else in life, we're doomed to repeat ourselves. So at what point yet again do we see, the crumbling of again, and the Jedis have to come forward? Do they repeat the mistakes of, the original Jedi Council, or do we fix those problems?
Yeah.
So I think there is a story to tell. It just depends on how it's handled. But I think there is room.
I think the unfortunate thing about the sequels is I think there's some characters there that were interesting characters that if you don't mishandle those movies, I think people would want to see more. Like, I'm speaking of maybe Finn specifically.
Yeah.
Is an unbelievably interesting character. A guy who is a stormtrooper who gets out of that life, who may be force sensitive. They set that character up so well to really just do nothing with him. The same with the fighter, the starfighter character. Oscar Isaac's character. Yeah.
Poe Dameron.
I mean, Poe Dameron. Yeah. Like, those characters had such a great setup that they just never really, and we'll never know. We'll never know if there was a plan. Like, it seems like maybe there wasn't a plan and they were just going movie by movie and kind of winging it.
Well, I think for me, and I talk about this quite often, I think a lot of people kind of look at me funny when I say it, but Rise of Skywalker in that trilogy, every time I watch it, I feel like, I hate to say this, was a step in the right direction. So then when you came back to JJ for 9, I felt like probably wasn't the greatest. I wish, they would have.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I felt like Rise,
I'm glad to hear you say that, because
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the minority when I say, actually, I kind of liked The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I kind of thought it was maybe the best one of the sequels. And then The Rise of Skywalker, I saw it one time in the theater, and I don't know if I'll ever go back and revisit it, because I don't know that I've ever been more disgusted in a movie that I paid money for, that I wanted to be good. And that movie was just so bad, in my opinion. Like, I don't know. I should probably watch it again, because I think I've just stewed on it for
and I enjoy
years since.
And I enjoy 7 and 9. 7 and 9 don't bother me at all. I just feel like, I want to see take this trilogy in different directions than what the original trilogy was. And I felt like Rian Johnson got that right.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like JJ, starts right direction, brought everybody back in a familiar way. And then when Rian came in with 8, you could take us the direction we needed to go and do something real different. And I feel like he's the one that really builds up, Finn and Poe. And then I feel like then you get to 9, and I feel like JJ coming back, he felt like okay, I don't want to do this. I don't do this. Let's, so I feel like there was kind of loss of a way kind of by 9. So it felt very disjointed, compared to.
Well, we're going to have a discussion soon on the pod about trilogies, probably the week after Guardians 3, the week after that pod. And I think there's something to this. The trilogies where you have one guy who does them all, think like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I just think that works better. And I think what mostly the sequels suffer from is like the reason that last movie is so unacceptable for me is because you had different creators who were then like, it was so clear that J.J. Abrams in that last movie was reacting to fan commentary.
Yes.
Like where he basically just kind of wrote The Last Jedi out of the, the story. He basically turned all the stuff that Rian Johnson did around.
Yes.
And that's why I was kind of disgusted with it, just because, hey, I was kind of into that story and now you just ended it and went your own way. And I just think that obviously we've seen that trilogies can work with different directors. The original Star Wars trilogy does that. Maybe the best installment's the one not done by George Lucas. Yeah, I mean, clearly it can work, but boy, it just didn't for the sequels. And I'd be lying if I said it didn't affect my excitement for this new movie that's coming out. Although placing it another 15 or 20 years out, just announcing Rey. Like clearly there's no mention of they're probably not getting Finn back because that actor doesn't want anything to do with it. Boyega is out.
Yeah.
So I am mildly interested in like, okay, it's one character and then a new story, and maybe that'll be okay. Yeah. All right. Anything else we need to talk about?
I think
Star Wars.
The other thing that they brought up was that timeline, and the timeline brought back Knights of the Old Republic. They didn't announce anything in that time frame, but it's Knights of the Old Republic is clearly in that timeline. So hopefully we're starting to play with Knights of the Old Republic. Hopefully.
Okay. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
It's a video game, right?
Yes. And there's novels as well during that time, Revan, characters like that. And they kind of shove them to the Legends timeline. So I hope they do them justice. I really want a Revan movie, but
yeah.
You and every other Star Wars fan, Scotty.
Exactly.
All right. Last words about Star Wars Celebration. Anything else you guys want to say?
Nope. I think it was successful in that, you reignited that fire again.
I would agree. I think this was a big win for Kathleen Kennedy and Star Wars. Now we wait to see if it pans out, because they've announced a lot of things in the past, like I said, that didn't pan out. So now we wait.
I agree.
But I think it was a win. I think they made a splash, and that's what they needed to do. Now they need to get a movie out there. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is our discussion for that. We do need one more piece of business on the tail end of this pod. And that is Comics Conclave, Scotty.
Yes.
So would you like to announce the Comics Conclave, if you're just listening to the pod for the first time, is sort of our book club for the pod, except we read graphic novels. So last month we read Last Ronin, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle story. I hope you all got to read that. I loved it. I thought it was great. So without further ado, Scotty, what is the title for this month?
This month we are in travel back to 98 to Daredevil, Guardian Devil by Kevin Smith. It is the first 8 issues of the second Daredevil run, underneath the Marvel Knights banner. So kind of a fresh kind of start. There's always kind of school of thought was that there's 3 eras of Daredevil. There's the Stan Lee beginning, there's the Frank Miller years, and then everything post Frank Miller. So after Frank Miller left, that title kind of drifted away and really didn't become anything till this run.
Yeah, I'm excited about reading this because was familiar with Frank Miller, but nothing really after that. So it's Daredevil White Guardian. That's the
Guardian Devil.
Guardian Devil. Okay. Daredevil, Guardian Devil, That is the Comics Conclave title for this month. I'm excited to get into some Daredevil and some Marvel again.
Yes.
Get into the Marvel comics, and we hope you will as well. As always, make sure and follow us, subscribe to the pod, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, join the community group on Facebook if you wanted to become even more part of the conversation with us and the community at large. Scotty, thank you so much.
No problem. Anytime.
For coming on and talking about Star Wars with someone who's just a casual fan, I think, these days. But I'm enjoying Mandalorian. I am enjoying it. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next time.
Next time.
Pop Culture Pastor. Pop Culture Pastor.